In July 2022, under the attention of international media, 3 female European bison were released into an ancient woodland in Canterbury. After thousands of years since wild bison had gone extinct, this giant animal finally returned to England. The 4th male, from Germany, only joined them later because he had been delayed by post-Brexit procedures. To the amazement of Paul Whitfield, Director General of the Wildwood Trust, he excitedly recalled how one female rushed straight into a patch of rhododendron, an invasive plant. She wildly swung her head in a figure-8 motion, then emerged with a wreath of rhododendron caught on her horns. The others rubbed their heads and bodies against tree trunks, stripping off long vertical sheets of bark, trampling young saplings, and snapping dry branches. That day was especially hot. Even though they had used essential oils from plants as an insect repellent, the insects still swarmed thickly around the bison dung piles. Just a few weeks later, Ranger Donovan Wright was stunned to record images of mushrooms growing densely together and beetle larvae packed tightly inside those dung piles. The transformation happened so quickly that it went far beyond anything they had expected. Why did they believe these animals could change the ecosystem just by observing destructive behavior in dung? To understand that, we have to begin with West Blean and Thorndon Woods. This forest covers about 490 hectares and lies within the ancient Blean area, which spans around 30 square kilometers and is considered one of the largest ancient woodlands in southern England. If you walked into it, everything would still look normal. But ecologists call that only an ecological illusion. Over many decades, part of the forest had been turned into commercial plantation woodland, with dense rows of non-native conifer trees grown for timber. The canopy hung over the ground like a pot lid, making the forest darker and gloomier. Sunlight could no longer reach the forest floor to support life. Wildflowers disappeared, young trees struggled to grow, insects lost their food sources, and woodland birds gradually lost their hunting grounds. Surveys showed that life was still there, but it was like a tiny spark in a room with too little oxygen, and it was about to go out. People immediately recognized this problem. For years, they cut and thinned trees, cleared dense undergrowth, and yes, that method worked. Trees were cut down and light reached the ground. Shrubs were cleared, giving low-growing plants a chance to come back. But only temporarily, like opening a window in that room so the fire can keep burning, then closing it again a few minutes later. Stop for a few years and the canopy closes back up. Everything starts all over again. And if they keep doing it forever, no budget would be enough for hundreds of hectares of forest. So what can bison do? Don't rush. It is a workforce that keeps working continuously, day after day, with no salary, no maintenance schedule, no machinery, and still delivers high efficiency. Do you remember when we said they returned after thousands of years? That wasn't just to make the title sound dramatic. European bison today are not considered a direct native species of England. However, in the distant past, a close relative of theirs, the forest bison, Bison schottensacki, now extinct worldwide, once lived in this region, at least during the Pleistocene. The animal they released was the European bison, and honestly, this species had also once disappeared from England. With adult males weighing more than 850 kilograms, the European bison is the largest living wild land mammal in Europe. That's right, when they disappeared, they left a huge gap in nature. Unlike the American bison, which is often associated with vast open grasslands, the European bison is more familiar with forests, forest edges, and open spaces between the trees. In the past, they once roamed across much of the continent, but then hunting, forest loss, and human expansion gradually pushed them back, like a massive wave being forced into a small bottle. By 1919, the last wild bison in Poland had been killed. In 1927, the last wild European bison on Earth was shot by a poacher in the Caucasus Mountains of Russia. The species had gone extinct in the wild, but the European bison had not completely vanished. 54 individuals survived in zoos across Europe, and all of them came from just 12 original animals. From those 12 individuals, conservationists began one of the most meticulous breeding programs in the history of wildlife conservation. Every individual's information was carefully recorded. Every bloodline was tracked. The European Bison Pedigree Book, first published in 1932, has recorded every living bison each year ever since. In 1952, the first captive-bred bison were released back into the wild in Poland's Białowieża forest. In the decades that followed, reintroduction programs expanded across Poland, Romania, Germany, the Netherlands, and many other countries. From just 12 animals in zoos in 1927, the number of wild bison in Europe today has grown to around 7,000. It was a recovery from the edge of extinction that took nearly a century. In England, they had been gone for about 6,000 years. Until July 2022, no ecosystem in England remembered them anymore. The Wilder-Blean Project, a partnership between Kent Wildlife Trust and Wildwood Trust, released the first herd of bison into a fenced area of the forest. 3 females arrived first in July, the matriarch and one 8-year-old female from Scotland and 2 younger females from Ireland. The bull was transported from Germany in December, delayed for several months because of post-Brexit animal import paperwork. His bloodline traces directly back to the original 12 individuals that saved this species from extinction. The way this decision is presented is very important. The bison were not brought to Kent because bison needed to be conserved in England. They were brought there because the forest needed protection, and bison were identified as the most effective tool currently available for the specific ecological work that needed to be done. The bison are not the beneficiaries of this project. They are the mechanism that makes it work. No extra feeding, no specialized management beyond basic veterinary care. The animals behave like wild animals, and the forest landscape around them changes. So what exactly have they done since arriving here? What did those first behaviors actually mean? We're going to reveal that right now. Take a very close look at these 4 behaviors. The first is bark stripping. When a bison uses its teeth, head, and body to rub against a tree trunk, long strips of bark get pulled down. Some trees are weakened, and some may even die standing. Sounds bad, right? But in a natural forest, when a tree dies, that decaying wood becomes a multi-story apartment building. More than 2,000 species of beetles depend on dead wood at different stages of decay. Fungi grow on rotting wood. Wood-boring beetles find food there. Larvae live in the soft cracks of the timber. Woodpeckers, bats, and countless small creatures gain more shelter. An adult male bison can weigh more than 850 kilograms, sometimes close to 900. Can you picture how big that is? It weighs almost as much as a small car. When a body like that moves through dense brush, branches snap, shrubs are pressed down, and small trails begin to appear. Light starts slipping through cracks in the canopy, falling onto the forest floor like oxygen entering a suffocating room. And all it takes is a little light for seeds lying dormant in the soil to wake up, for saplings to rise, for wildflowers to return, and for insects to find food again. Bison also love dust bathing and disturbing the soil. They create shallow depressions in the ground by rolling around and scraping the earth with their bodies, leaving patches of bare soil across the forest floor. Open patches inside a wooded forest are important habitats for certain insects and plants, species that cannot survive in dense vegetation. Every little puddle that forms becomes a tiny ecological hotspot. While American bison have a head-down posture that reflects their preference for grazing close to the ground, the European bison holds its head slightly higher, reflecting its more varied feeding habits. European bison eat grasses, herbs, leaves, young shoots, and even woody plants, especially in winter and early spring when green food is less available. One adult can consume more than 14 kilograms of dry matter a day. What matters is that they do not eat evenly. One area gets grazed low, another stays dense. One spot opens to the light, another remains covered. The result is a habitat mosaic that is not flat and uniform like a lawn, but patchy, messy, and much richer in opportunities for life. And don't forget the thing most people see as the dirtiest part: dung. Just a few weeks after the bison were released, rangers saw fungi and beetle larvae appearing in their dung. Dung is not just waste. It is fertilizer, food, a meeting point for insects, and a way for nutrients to return to the soil. Only a few weeks later, Ranger Donovan Wright recorded images of mushrooms growing thickly and beetle larvae packed densely inside those dung piles. He was also surprised by how fast it all developed. Dung can bring in beetles, beetles can bring in birds, and birds can pull in a whole new chain of movement. That is why Wilder-Blean is not just watching a few stripped trunks or a few crushed shrubs. They are tracking a larger living experiment across more than 560 hectares, with 15 slam insect traps operating from May to September during the 2021 2024 period, along with surveys of plants, butterflies, reptiles, and 673 monitoring plots for the food plants of the Heath fritillary butterfly. Even if the results are not huge yet, the fact that such a small number of bison have already done this much is very promising. Actually, there is still another role of bison that very few people talk about: their ability to support carbon storage in ecosystems. One notable example comes from the Țarcu Mountains in Romania. There, a herd of around 170 bison is estimated to help the landscape store an additional 54,000 tons of carbon each year, equal to the annual emissions of about 43,000 gasoline cars in the United States. That number has already been corrected. It is not 2 million cars, as an earlier error in the study claimed. Even so, it opens up a very interesting idea. If bison have enough space, enough numbers, and live in the right ecosystem, they may not only open up the forest canopy, create deadwood, and bring insects back, but also contribute to the fight for natural carbon storage. But honestly, bison are the stars of this story, not the only ones doing the work in this forest. If bison are like giant ecological bulldozers, then the other species released into West Bleen are like an entire natural work crew, with each species carrying out a different ecological task. By March 2023, the forest welcomed Iron Age pigs, longhorn cattle, and Exmoor ponies, grazing animals chosen not for decoration, but to help transform the structure of the woodland. The Iron Age pigs, a cross between domestic pigs and wild boar, lower their snouts and dig through the forest floor like living plows. They turn over the leaf litter, stir up dormant seeds, and open patches of bare soil where young plants have a chance to take root. Exmoor ponies do a different job. They graze low-growing vegetation, helping keep some areas from being swallowed back up by dense scrub. And the longhorn cattle, with their large bodies and long horns, create grazing pressure while also helping scientists make a comparison. Do bison really create a different impact from traditional livestock? This is the smart part of Wilder Bleen. The project does not simply show us that bison are good for the forest and then stop there. They divided the woodland into 3 trial areas, one with bison, ponies, and pigs, one with longhorn cattle, ponies, and pigs, and one still managed in the traditional way through cutting and clearing. At first, the bison lived in an area of about 50 hectares, with the goal of expanding to 200 hectares thanks to specially designed bridges. But the pigs, ponies, and longhorn cattle can appear in more public areas, meaning visitors may sometimes see them right in the middle of the forest. But for a forest to change in the long term, bison can not only play the role of ecological engineers, they also have to reproduce, form a herd, and allow the next generation to grow up right here in this forest. And surprisingly, that moment came faster than anyone had imagined. When the 3 female bison were released into West Bleen in July 2022, the project team had no idea that one of them was already pregnant. By early September, rangers Don and Tom noticed that one young female had separated from the herd and quietly moved deep into a dense corner of the forest. At first, they worried that she was sick or that something was wrong. But when they followed the tracks, they saw a tiny head peeking out from behind its mother. A bison calf had been born. That moment did not just overwhelm the ranger team with emotion. It turned the project from a controlled experiment into the story of a new generation. That first calf would never know what a zoo was. It would learn where to find water, where there was mud for dust bathing, which paths led through the bushes, which trees had tasty bark, and which parts of the forest were safe places to rest. Then more calves continued to appear. By 2025, a total of 5 bison calves had been born in this ancient woodland, with the newest female calf marking the 3rd wild generation since the herd was brought into Canterbury. The herd is still only a small group, but each calf feels like a confirmation. Bison are not just surviving here, they are beginning to belong here. However, that joy comes with a major challenge. European bison have made a remarkable recovery, rising from around 1,800 wild individuals in 2003 to more than 6,200 in 2019, and in 2020, the IUCN moved them from vulnerable to near threatened. But they are still not safe. Many herds remain small and isolated, with limited genetic diversity, and only a small number of populations are large enough to be sustainable in the long term. But that also means more and more of these giant animals are coming back. So how can an animal weighing nearly a ton have enough space to move around when West Blean has so many public walking trails? In England, bison are not treated like domestic cattle or horses. They are managed under dangerous wild animal regulations, so they cannot freely share the same space with older adults, children, or visitors taking a walk through the forest. At first, the bison could only move through a small part of the woodland. But if they are going to create a real ecological impact, opening up the forest canopy, breaking up dense scrub, creating trails, and spreading nutrients, that amount of space is not enough. The problem is that sections of the forest are divided by a network of public footpaths. You cannot simply open the fence and let these massive animals cross through areas where people are walking. So the Rewilding project had to build bridges for the bison. Not bridges for cars, not bridges for trains, but bridges where people walk above while the bison quietly pass underneath. The project plans to build 4 special bridges, with a total cost of around £1 million to connect the woodland areas while still keeping a safe distance between people and animals weighing hundreds of kilograms. Some technical descriptions also show that the protection system is not simple at all. Inside, there is an electric fence about 1.4 meters high, and outside, another fence about 1.9 meters high. According to the updated plan, 2 bridges were built in 2025, while the remaining 2 are expected to be completed during the 2026-2027 period. Visitors passing through the area have described walking along a forest trail, while right below them, a bison silently crossed through the shade of the trees. People did not touch it. It was not blocked by people. Humans and wild nature existed in the same landscape. But you know what? People in England are very sensitive when it comes to wild animals. Many are used to a safer version of nature, with signs, clear walking paths, and fences separating people from wildlife. So when they hear about an animal weighing nearly a ton, they start asking, what if it escapes? What if a child meets it on a trail? If an accident happens, who is responsible? This is a question of trust. Authorities can build fences, construct bridges, and monitor the herd, but they still have to convince the community that bison are not monsters in the forest, but part of an ecosystem being carefully managed. And for local people to accept the project, it cannot bring only risks and costs. It also has to create value. This is where the green economy enters the story. Blean Wildscape is not only aiming for ecological restoration, it also wants to make use of the roughly 7 million visitors who come to East Kent each year by creating nature, education, guided tours, bison safaris, green jobs, lodging, local shops, and forest-based experiences. Wildwood Kent already offers a bison safari experience for people aged 16 and older, priced at around £70 per person. A sign that bison are not just animals behind a fence, but could become a new symbol for the entire region. After all of that, they still realize something. If you only look at a herd of bison in a forest in Kent, the project is already strange enough. But their goal is to reconnect an entire landscape of more than 12,000 hectares across the Blean. Because the problem with forests today is that roads, private land, villages, farming, and fences have turned many woodland areas into scattered green islands. On a map, they may look close together, but for animals, insects, and seeds, they are as distant as 2 completely different worlds. Looking even wider, the bison in Kent also belong to the larger recovery story of all of Europe. This animal once disappeared from the wild, then was brought back from a very small group of captive individuals. But survival does not mean safety. They still need space, genetic diversity, habitat corridors, and most importantly, human acceptance. That is why Wilder Blean is becoming such a bold model. Does England, and more broadly Europe, still have enough room for giant animals to return? We cannot answer that in advance. We will have to wait for time and for the next bison reintroduction projects to tell us. In the end, the early success at Wilder Blean has made many people start looking at bison differently. They are no longer just giant animals stepping out of the past. They could become part of the future of forest management in England. Some other farms and nature reserves have already begun paying attention to this model. Of course, the road ahead is not simple, but this story has left behind one important lesson. A forest can be full of trees and still be poor in life. A dead tree trunk can feed hundreds of organisms. A patch of disturbed soil can become the place where seeds begin again. And an animal that looks like it is destroying things may actually be giving the forest back something it has lost. Sometimes, nature does not need to be cleaner. It needs more movement. It does not need to be neater. It needs to be more complex. So what do you think? Should we allow large animals to return and shape landscapes on their own? Or does nature still need humans to control it carefully? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to see more stories about animals, green technology, and natural solutions that are helping repair human mistakes, make sure to subscribe to the channel.